Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up, I was going to say follow up, but we're going to wrap up this week's theme of psychedelic music with, well, honestly, a place I wouldn't expect it. And it's also really interesting that we're going to wrap up the week in a similar space that we started. We kicked off this week with some Little Yachty, and I assumed we were going to get something hip-hop related with maybe a psychedelic bend to it, and we got kind of a full-on progressive psychedelic rock track out of that. And here we have Watsky, also someone else I know for hip-hop. In particular, he's a fantastic rapper, although I think the only times I've heard his music, the musical component was more classical than traditional hip-hop, but his rapping was still the centerpiece to the experience. Let's dive into this. See what Watsky has in store for us with Dreams and Boxes. It's a big bass.
I know where all my problems come from. I never really had the guts to look under that log. I need them all to love me, but they see through me so easy.
Kind of pop rock, indie rock with a bit of reverb.
I wish I could believe in you.
That bass is so big though.
Sounds fun.
Sub bass as well. The new vocals are in a place to sit around the bass, but the bass was dominating even the vocals last time.
Good news, I'm way too scared to do it, and I have too much fun being scared. I'm in this for life, like it or not. I'm not going anywhere.
Why does he remind me so much of the Sum 41 vocalist?
I'm in this for life, like it or not. You will have to drag me by the neck. I'm not gonna be written on the ceiling of the box while the coffin is new. California dreaming while the demons are hot on our tail. Hop a curb, yes, that was me off the trail. Officer, no, I don't have a good reason. I was just in a mood to go seeking. Heard a hard poem, it had my heart thumping.
Overemphasizing the breath.
This one is for the people who raised me up. It's for the people who raised me up. If you remember one thing, then remember how it felt when you fell for the first time. This one is for the people who raised me up. It's for the people who raised me up.
Yeah.
If you remember one thing, then remember how it felt. I'm in this for life.
Yeah! It's interesting, the drums are so energetic, but so compressed in the mix. We do have the bass guitar, but we also have this bassy synth over here.
You want your holy grail. Try not to overthink it. I try but always fail. But I want it so damn bad, I'm addicted to life. If I lived how I thought that you want me to live, I don't think you'd like what you got. If I shot my poetry out of a cannon, would it make it any better if you fill a gun with glitter? Would it become a bullet if you're only suffering and more
Oh,
fail?
dang. The Scottish snaps into the triplets. So good. And then to chill it back out here. Yeah.
This one is for the people who raised me up. It's for the people who raised me up. If you remember one thing, then remember how it felt when you fell for the first time. This one is for the people who raised me up. It's for the people who raised me up. If you remember one thing, then remember how it felt.
slight detuning on this. A little bit of, yeah, it's pitched down just a little bit. Lots of stress, anxiety over here. Bouncing back in between those
myself
notes.
Completely. We were having a party in a house falling out of the sky.
Almost like detuned chip noise.
Every clique showed up. The ones who loved the smell of gasoline, the shy beautifuls,
Very
microphone
different
eaters,
layering and atmosphere.
the gimme gimme gimmes,
I think this
maybe
chord
next
progression
year's.
is
the boring childhooders who trashed their lives for fun.
similar. It's not identical.
The house rotated as it made it through the storm. Eyeball-sized hail sailed sideways through the windows as the single pane survived the great fire, 100-year-old glass all smashed. We laughed and dropped the hailstones in our drinks and danced. We started chanting something optimistic that we knew was maybe mostly bullshit. That if we even still felt
Little jazzy
1/10 of
piano
1%
line,
how
but
we felt in that moment
panning.
in the morning, that it would be an energy that could shake neighborhoods from their foundations. We dragged ourselves on a 20-mile mission to fill our goblets in the kitchen. I got stopped by a hallway goblin named Frank who said he once dreamed Karl Marx and Rosa Parks were beating the shit out of him, which gave him a full-body orgasm. I told him my dad analyzes dreams for a living and believes they're portals to the subconscious. And I believe him, and I don't judge you. We're all weirdos. My dad still refuses to drive Beamers because they made cars for Hitler. But I always suspected that that was convenient logic for a family that could only afford used station wagons. I told him how in a drawer of my house I found a matchbook from my dad's 1955 bar mitzvah. It still had 9 dry, unused matches that hadn't been torn from the cardboard. It's a time machine and remains my second most prized possession. Do you understand this, Frank? You're in the presence of a motherfucker who owns fire from the past. Can you imagine getting high with a flame from 1955?
Oh, dang, that's good.
Can you? Do you feel connected to your ancestors? Do you? Do you ever feel strange? Wonder how the world's gaze has shaped you? Do you fear being shaken by the shoulders like an Etch-a-Sketch? Being mugged for your memories? I do. They are my first most prized possession. My very first memory was sitting in a high chair with my brother the day the bay ripped in two. The earthquake shook the china from the shelves and we clapped because we didn't understand. I told him how my mother's father died in a plane crash. I told him how my brother grew up to be a pilot. And then the captain, which apparently the building had, and was my brother, came over the intercom, which apparently the building had, and alerted the party that the house was starting to spin faster and soon it would be time for us to hit the ground. So either buckle your seatbelts, say your prayers, or find someone who wants to fuck you. China was smashing against the ceiling. Me and Frank said our goodbyes easily once I realized I'd been having a conversation in the mirror the whole time. I climbed out a window, clung to a drain pipe, and watched the stars paint the sky.
Little boxes on the hillside. Little boxes on the hillside. I see the ghosts on every corner of the people that we used to be.
Digging that bass
So
line.
many that they sit upon the shoulders of their brothers and their sisters as our city slips into the sea. Danny Danny in the DCT, getting stomped in the head on Clement Street. Kids in the black boots, dad's got the long hair. Dad's getting hired, getting fired, everybody wave. Mom's got my pills and a paper bag, bills on the table, that's before they were really real people. And the punks grabbed my bike in a Safeway parking lot, chased them for
Sounds like pots and pans. It's interesting how far we have come from the intro.
Been jocking her boy, she couldn't see where I sat with binoculars. Binoc stashed in my pocket, shot my good shot, the good Lord, she blocked it. Cherish the small tragedies. The big ones are smoking out in the bathroom and loitering for the moment when nobody sees them coming and open and they can jump in and make a total catastrophe. My family try to hold it together, but now that we can't hold it together, we hold each other closer instead. Can't waste it on the muni off the DP. Kids with the tall can, dad's got the short hair. Dad's not retired quite yet, everybody wave. Mom plays guitar, she sings to us at night. That was before we were really real people. And the punks grabbed my bike in the Safeway parking lot, chased them for 5 blocks, never got it back. Never got it back. Never got it back. There's a blue one and a yellow one, and they all look just the same.
Okay. That's there was a point in there. That's a big track. There was a point in there where I thought to myself, there's gonna be so many lyrics to this. And at the start I was a little worried that this would end up being a gigantic analysis video, simply because there was a lot of music within the opening like 3 minutes or so, but the song consistently found ways to press towards minimalism after we hit that second section. And I think this is really interesting because I kind of view this in 3 portions. We have the intro, and there is a lot of sung parts, some rapped parts, just a lot of words. And then we had a little instrumental bit that slowly reduced all the layers that we had introduced and kind of brought it down to something a bit more foundational. Just a chord progression anyways, and the vocals. And I think we dropped the tempo about 20 BPM or so as well. I would say this started around the 3-ish minute mark, 4-ish minute mark, somewhere around, probably 4. That sounds about right. And we did build up layers, but the layers here they were texture layers. They weren't like the first third of this track, which is focused around rhythmic layers. We had melodies coming in too, ornamental ideas, all sorts of cool little ways to spice up the track, little sounds and instruments popping up everywhere. But this was just textures. The chord progression, and then maybe a sound. Maybe it had a melodic quality to it, but kind of quiet, low. Some sort of drone appearing in the background, increasing the intensity as we got further through this moment, but we never quite felt like it was the party, the cluttered, for lack of a better word, mess that the first third was. This was more measured, more isolating. Of course, after this, there was the ramp back up in tempo. We had a lick that was repeated as if it were on loop We had a nice full idea here, and now we're only getting this one piece of it over and over as we speed up the tempo, and that takes us into the outro, the final 2.5 minutes or so of this track, that kind of finds the middle ground between both of these. This is quite a bit more muted and lower energy, much like the second portion, but it was layered with rhythmic devices. There's shakers in here, there's little clattering sounds, there is competing melodies, our large bass guitar is back to fill in space here. It captures the vibes of the opening and sort of the cadence and pacing of that, while mostly focusing on the lighter, hazier atmosphere found in the second movement. And so movements 2 and 3 are focusing more on a haziness and a specific atmosphere rather than a layering of melodic and rhythmic devices. It focuses on a more minimalistic approach, something that can be set and repeated throughout the entirety of its run, maybe gradually adding a couple of smaller ideas, but not really distancing too far from this reduced instrumental focus. Whereas the first third of this track to me is kind of musical first. And I think that's what gives it its specific identity. I had mentioned at the beginning of this track that it felt kind of indie rockish, but part of that does come from the fact that the vocals are sung there. But also when I listen to the instrumentation, it has dominance over the vocals. I even mentioned that the bass guitar, despite being mostly sub-bass, seems to dominate everything in it, including the vocals. It takes a couple of bars until we have a new vocal delivery that has prominence in the mix over the bass, but it still feels like it's competing with the instruments in a way that you just don't see too often in hip-hop music. It's a really interesting idea to contrast that with the hyper minimalism of drone and texture in the second section, and then layered instrumental parts that still focus on atmosphere in the final third. It creates something that is pretty dense. Like I had mentioned at the beginning, if I thought that was, I did think that was going to be the whole song. And I was like, dude, this is going to be like a prog rock track. I'm going to have so much to think about, so much stuff to remember. And ultimately, I didn't. The song continues to push into more and more atmospheric and minimalistic ideas. So it starts out on a bang, kind of ends up on a little bit of a whimper. All right. The first section, well, I've kind of already gone over this, the feelings of it all. I don't really need to touch on that again then. I suppose I just want to kind of throw some praise on for a lot of the variety on this track. In particular, as I mentioned, there's a lot of instruments in here. We do have a sort of rock band idea. We have guitars, bass guitar, drums, and vocals at the beginning of the track, and we even have a nice pop punk drum part come in that I was really excited to hear at the beginning of the track, though interestingly it was pushed way back into the mix with a lot of the treble rolled off of it, so it felt muffled and muted. The distance by putting it into the back of the mix was interesting too, and it was the core driving part of this section that was kind of difficult to hear. An interesting choice overall, and one of many, I think, from a production perspective that I think I would need to understand what the story is at that time to really grasp what the purpose of it is, what it's trying to say. It's an unusual and obtuse production style that must have been done for a reason. Anyways, though, we have the sub bass comes in at times, which is very cool. I don't think my hardware can accurately render it, and I know my ears probably can't either. The low end in my left ear is complete garbage, but I felt it, which is pretty cool. And I bet it's even cooler on better hardware. But there's also a synthesized low-end bassy tone that pops up too and does counterpoint against the moving bass lines, which I got two moving bass lines in this. Like, awesome. It's awesome. I'm glad it's here. I love bass lines. And this was, in parts of this track, a dream come true from that perspective. There's a lot of electronic stuff going on in here. Synthesizers and keyboards and all sorts of samples. And I can't even name half of them, but they continue to give the song an ever-shifting sonic palette to work within. And once again, much like the drum production choice, I'm sure that some of these make sense when you understand what's going on. I mean, there's pots and pan sounds in here. I don't know if it's literal samples of pots and pans. I don't know if the producer of this, I don't know if Watsky produces his own stuff or not. Anyways, if they went and recorded, just taking a wooden spoon and hitting a pan or something in order to create this sound, and then, digitized it and what's the word? Sequenced it for this. But whatever. I mean, that hit a specific flavor for me. It hit my ears, and I was like, dude, pots and pans. I don't know if that's really what it was, but it's what it felt like. And what does that have to do with the music? So there's little choices like that all throughout. The atmosphere, which I already touched on, loud and layered and rhythmically syncopated, and lots of competing ideas coming together to form something larger. The clockwork style of composition in the first section, whereas everything else kind of pushes more toward, everything else. The second section pushes more towards a wall of sound, a general haze, a foggy atmosphere. Very different vibe in general. And that was done with a completely different set of instruments. So there's just a lot of sounds. And even if you don't pay attention to any of the words, generally from moment to moment, if you just pay attention to the background, you pay attention to ornamental ideas or embellishing ideas, you pay attention to bass lines, foundational concepts, anything, you're going to hear a lot of stuff. And this even goes towards the vocals as well. I was quite surprised to hear something beyond rap or spoken word on this. Right off the bat, we have sung lines. And for whatever reason, they still sound like the lead singer of Sum 41 to me in the opening. I don't know what it is about the coloring of the dude's voice, but it just matches it in specific syllables. I don't think it's across the board, but there are, 2 or 3 words at a time. I'm like, dude, that was just like him. Wild stuff. But yeah, we have that. And then we also have spoken word. We have spoken word that's a bit lower in the mix and kind of hazy, ethereal, after imagey. It's just kind of hard to lock down the physicality of it. And then right after this, as I had mentioned earlier, we have a new vocal that is above the mix. It comes out around the, above the bass guitar that's just kind of sub-bassing all of this space here. And it's very clearly in the middle. There's no spatial projection to it. It is here in the middle. It's loud, it's present. It has a very different feel to it, but we also get rapping out of that. And then we get some wild wordsmith stuff in here. I can't wait to hit the lyrics. There are phrases that I kind of picked up, some neat wordplay, but also just the way that it sounds, the rhyme schemes going on in this entire track. It is just a joy to listen to, even though I didn't even pick up 3% of the lyrics on this track. And I'm just, as always, when it comes to phenomenal rappers like this, it's every bit of the wordplay, it's every bit of the word selection, the general diction in play here, and not just how it looks on paper or how it sounds in my head when I read it, but also how it sounds as an instrument, ignoring the meanings of the syllables that form words, that form sentences, and just enjoying the sonic properties of these sounds being created by the mouth and how they run together, how they have cadence, the rhythmic shifts, the way that some syllables sound similar to others, creating all sorts of cool phenomenon like alliteration and rhyming. It's even the ups and downs. Hip hop isn't, or rapping isn't typically known for melodic stylings, but very rarely are you going to find a good rapper who just talks monotone all the time, just one sound. There's always some sort of inflective change to it that creates something engaging to listen to. So, all in all, I did find the song kind of wind down in energy towards the end, and I can't wait to see what that's all about. But regardless, I still found that moment to moment, there's something to engage with, and there is still the larger play. Why do we start at such a high energy and dip it down, then come back up just a little bit? What's the narrative there? And what are all of the smaller ideas? This, much like a good prog rock track, is something where I think the moment-to-moment instrumental and production choices are informed by the story being told. It's something where having a good understanding of the musical flow as well as the lyrical story and understanding how these work together are really going to amplify the enjoyment of the track. I really like this on a technical level, but something tells me that after 5 or 10 listens, when I can begin to anticipate musical changes and understand them within the context of what's being said at those times, that's when the song's really going to come together. As of right now, I have a vast appreciation for what I've picked up here, but I get the feeling a lot of it's going to be more surface level, and that there's going to be more depth that I'm just not going to have the time or ability to get to on a first time listen. Let's hit some lyrics here. All right, there's a lot of words to this. We're going to cover general ideas rather than look at every single stanza in here. We'd be here quite a while. What I do find interesting, though, is there are a lot of repeated stanzas in this, kind of hearkening back to a bit of a, I guess, kind of punk rock, where the verses are all the same, the choruses are all the same. You don't even have a verse 2, verse 3 kind of idea. I think that's interesting. It's almost like a chorus that can pop up anywhere. I wonder how that fits into the music. That's one of those things I'd love to have this information going into another listen of. It is split into 3 parts, and I'd wager that the sections that I felt in the song where we had pretty large musical shifts are also designators of where the lyrical parts are separated as well. Part 1 is called Dreams. Part 3 is called Boxes. Part 2 is untitled. I'm going to call it And. That's where we get the title of the song, Dreams and Boxes. No, it is untitled. But they're all tied together somehow. Part 1 is about how tough life can be, how hard it is to chase dreams, and how heavy some of this can be when you chase your dreams and you don't quite get the return that you would want from them. It says that he might have some problems that come from his past. It says some of his problems I think I know where all my problems come from. And then he says California. And thanks to genius annotators, he was raised in California. That's his past. That's his childhood right there. He says, though, that he's never really had the guts to look under the log. He just needs everyone to see him and love him. He wants to be that kind of person that people idolize. He says he gets dark thoughts, though. Never thought that he'd be the one to have them. Good news, he's too scared to actually do it. And he's having too much fun being scared. I think this is interesting because right off the bat, we kind of see who he is, what he wants in life, his fears in life, how much he clings to life. We take this idea of, I have thoughts of suicide, but I'd never go through with it, to a repeated phrase Well, it's a phrase we will see repeated. Anyways, says, I'm in this for life. Like it or not, I'm not going anywhere. Followed by, I'm not going to bail. I'm writing on the ceiling of the box while the coffin is nailed. California dreaming while the demons are hot on our tail. We already have some really cool schemes showing up here. But I like this thematic idea too, moving from dark thoughts into possible suicide, and then I'd never do that because I'm too much tied to life, and then transitioning to being inside of a coffin that is nailed down, some sort of metaphorical death, even though him inside of it is still alive. He's being buried somehow. I didn't get to the next level of that metaphor, but maybe it's a feeling of being contained. Maybe this isn't about death at all, but feeling claustrophobic, wanting to break free and go somewhere else, do something else, chase those dreams. Because right after this, a cop pulls him over and he says, yeah, that was me going off the trail and I don't have a good reason for it. I was just in a mood to go seeking, to start my blood pumping again. It may just be about stagnation with life and wanting something more, which is very cool. To go through all of these themes and still have this connection of death on the mind, death as a metaphor, and escape from death being the need to go do other things, to feel like stagnation itself is being buried alive. It keeps the theme running while exploring different ideas. It's just incredibly well written. I love it. Then we get to what I think I would call the chorus. It says, this is for the people who raised me up. If you remember one thing, remember how it felt. I think a majority of this track is about rising up out of a place you've been, seeking out your dreams, and realizing that it's not just you. Very few of us have to rely on, or very few of us can reach goals without relying on anyone. It takes a village, they say, typically speaking about raising a child, but I even think about the idea of getting a child to succeed, to make their way into their life as an adult who can be proud of what they're doing. It's not just about the formative years. It's not just about the child raising, but also about helping them reach their dreams. And when they do, to realize that it wasn't just them. It wasn't just their parents. It was their friends, it was their siblings, it was their community members, it was the people who, the people who ran the library, if that's where you went and got your education of the world, to see through other perspectives. It's everything in your life that gave you that step, that next step in your journey. I really love this moment in the track. He says, you want your holy grail, but try not to overthink it, because when I do, I always fail. And I want it so bad. I'm addicted to life. Once again, it's about chasing dreams here. But then he says that you got to live your life the way you have to live your life. You can't follow anyone else. He says, if I lived how I thought that you wanted me to live, I don't think you'd like what you got. If I shot my poetry out of a cannon, would it get any better? If I filled a gun with glitter, what would become of the bullet? If we took things and used them in ways that they weren't supposed to, it's not really going to be too effective. And that's what trying to mold yourself into somebody else's idea of who you should be ends up becoming. You're less effective because you're less you. You're being used in the wrong ways. Your skills are not in the optimal position. Part two, then, the unspoken poetry, is all over the place. It talks about being in a dream. And he's at a house and a party, and everyone shows up, and there's hail coming down, and it's crashing in through the windows, but everyone just laughs, and he puts the hailstone in his drink, and they start dancing. And he says, even if we felt 1/10 of how we feel right now, in this moment, if we felt this way in the morning, the amount of energy that we have could shake neighborhoods from their foundation. This is foreshadowing for something we're going to read about in a second. He talks about dragging himself to the kitchen, but being stopped by a hallway goblin named Frank. And Frank goes on about a dream he had. And he replies, my dad analyzes dreams. I believe him, and I don't judge you. We're all weirdos at the end of the day. He talks about his dad's superstition. He doesn't drive BMWs because they were cars made for Hitler. But he sees through that. He says that it may have been some logic that helped my dad understand that our family could only afford a used station wagon, and that's why we didn't have a BMW. To put a moral element on top of an economic situation. He then talks about how he has a drawer in his house with a matchbook from his dad's bar mitzvah. It had 9 dry, unused matches that hadn't been torn from the cardboard. He calls it a time machine. He says, do you understand this, Frank? You're in the presence of a motherfucker who owns fire from the past. And that line cracks me up, dude, because it's wonderfully stupid, lacking profundity while on the surface being incredibly deep. It's not wrong. This is fire from the past. But it doesn't actually mean anything. It is still just a match, just a series of matches here. But it's because of the conviction in the statement and the seemingly profound element to it that gives it weight and begs me to ask, is there more to it? And I think there is. I love it. And I love the lead into it. Do you understand this, Frank? Do you understand what's going on here? This is wild. But then he goes on some other ideas. It says, do you feel strange? Do you fear being shaken by the shoulders or being mugged for your memories? That these are my most prized possessions. Then he goes on and talks about his first memory, sitting in a high chair with his brother the day there was an earthquake. Presumably at San Francisco Bay. It just says the day that the bay ripped open. Talks about the earthquake shaking the china from the shelves. Like I mentioned earlier, the idea of having so much energy that we could shake neighborhoods from their foundation shows up here later on. Talks about how apparently this building had a captain to it and an intercom system, and his brother happened to be the captain, and he told everyone to buckle up, and so he jumped out the window, clung to the drain pipe, and watched the stars paint the sky. And I really love this because it's sort of a dream within a dream within a dream. It shifts and molds itself from one idea to the next in a way that really only dreams can. It makes sense when you read it out loud, but when you really think about it, this whole stanza is bonkers. And I love it. It even breaks that level where the very first sentence is I dreamed. It goes to explain the dreams, and within this, he talks to a goblin who tells our narrator about a dream they had. And the narrator tells the goblin, my dad analyzes dreams. Here's my first memory. And what are memories if not lived dreams? Especially the further we get away from a memory, the more dreamlike it becomes, the less details we remember in it. Some elements get hazy. the temporal components get fuzzy. We kind of jump between core, impactful moments of this event in our life. And that's for the people who have memories based on visual ideas, pictures, and video. Some people's memories aren't like that at all. It all ends up feeling very dreamlike. Sometimes we remember stuff that never actually happened, and that's even weirder. Memories are faulty at the end of the day, in which case, if it's a memory that never happened, that's just a dream I've clung to as a real event. Very interesting midpoint here. There probably is some depth to it. Means something more than just a retelling of a fun dream that might not have even happened. This could just be an exercise in fictional writing. But as far as I can tell, it is an isolated idea. Moving into the final part of this track called Boxes, he talks about living. Instead of looking towards the future, though, it's peering into the past. He says, I see the ghosts on every corners of the people we used to be. So many that they sit upon the shoulders of their brothers and their sisters as our city slips into the sea. Talks about his dad having long hair, getting hired, getting fired. Mom's got my pills in a paper bag, bills on the table. That's before they were really real people, though. I find that interesting. Is that real people from his perspective? The idea of being a child and maybe haven't really quite grasped everything. I don't know how better to word that. Like as a child, you understand that this is my mom, this is my dad, my brother, or whatever. You understand these are people, but do you understand that they're people? Something about becoming an adult, and I think doubly so becoming a parent, and being able to put your feet into your parents' shoes, realizing what they might have gone through in their own raising of you, the things they might have hid from you, or the stories they tell you now that you're older, things that they might have passed on or had to deal with, put up with, do that you weren't acknowledging of. Simply because you're a child. You shouldn't have to deal with some of these larger ideas. Life is just good, hopefully, for you as a child. Being a parent's hard, though. Before they were real people from the child's perspective, before they have their own lives, their own personalities, their own needs, when it's beyond feed me, clothe me, play with me, the self-centeredness of childhood. Before they were really real people. That line stands out to me, and it is said 3 times in this outro here. He talks about having already started the fading process, though we weren't aware of it yet. Talks about what I'm going to assume is high school days, possibly teenage days. Comes back to the little boxes on the hillside, which is the repeated line through all of this. Push forward in the future a little bit, returning to a similar phrasing, but with different ideas. Says Dad's got the short hair and he's not quite retired yet. Everyone's waving. I'm still in the ambulance, or maybe in the ambulance again. Mom plays guitar and she sings to us at night. That was before we were really real people. I'm curious about that. The inversion there, to change the perspective from the camera pointed at them to the camera pointed at all of us. We, before we were really real people. Little boxes on the hillside, a blue one and a yellow one. and they all look just the same. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot here I'm not getting, which is fine. It's a lot of words in general, but it's also Watsky. And this dude writes in layers that I'm never going to get on a first time through. And that's just because he's a phenomenal wordsmith, honestly. And like I said earlier, I'd love to tie this into the music. What does all of this mean against the brighter, dancier, explosive opening, and then the more somber midpoint, and then finding the place between those two realms to wrap things up? How does all of this come together? It's one of those things that's going to be unlocked with familiarity. The more you listen to it, the more you pick up on the nuance, the more you can piece things together, the more it will have to say to you. These, though, are my thoughts on Dreams in Boxes from Watsky on a first time listen. What did you think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Let me know. Put all of that and anything else you'd like to add into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Actually, no. I won't be back tomorrow. There won't be an album review this week. Fingers crossed, though, I'll be back on Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live stream. That I know it's only 2 days away, but it is pending. My kid's been sick this week. I've been playing Nurse Bryan and haven't really had a lot of time to dedicate to this. So, you know, if I have the ability to do it on Sunday, I will. I'll let y'all know, though, as soon as I can so that no one is just kind of left hanging trying to get into a live stream that isn't happening. I am fairly confident, though, Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be back for the usual stuff. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.